Hi, I'm 2021 Why Not Cam Awards winner Chelsea Poe. I'm here to tell you about my cam studio, Treasure Cams. Treasure Cams is a performer-led webcam studio owned by queer porn star Bella Vendetta. We welcome all 21 plus models who want to earn a paycheck from home as cam performers. We're open to all body types, genders, persuasions, and presentations. You get access to our performer-only forums, monthly team meetings, as well as help with promotion and marketing. For customers, check out treasurecams.com to see all of our models, schedules, and photos. treasurecams.com. Have you ever been looking for an amazing queer cam performer? Well, I got you covered. You should check out TS Cami. Her super hot content is on Chatterbait, Twitter, Xhamster, and Reddit. Support this rad trans femme babe. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Performers Pod. I'm Chelsea Poe. I'm here today with Vesper Vail. How are you doing today?
Vesper Vail doing fantastic.
I'm so excited to talk to you. I heard a lot from you from Bella. Yeah, that there's like another trans femme doing BDSM always makes me happy. Feel like there can always be more trans BDSM in the world.
We
So
need more. We need more.
yeah, so welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for having me. Very excited to be here.
Of course. So you're fairly new to um porn in the camming world, right?
Yeah. I have just started camming about 6 weeks ago, so I am very, very
Wow. I
new.
remember my
Yeah.
first 6 months. That was I remember my first show. I remember like the first $20 I made, and it felt like
Yeah.
magic, right?
Yeah.
You're like,
Yeah.
I'm in my bedroom, and then I just made $20.
Yeah. Someone told me like, tell me when to jerk off, and I say jerk off, and then they did it, and I made $20. That was insane.
It's so amazing. So I'm really excited to talk to you about someone who has such a new experience in the industry. I got into camming in like 2011. So just like hearing new people's experiences, and that's kind of like something I really want to capture on this, that there isn't one universal porn or camming experience. There's so many. So what kind of drew you into this like
So
6 months ago? Because it's so recent.
6 weeks, not months. Six
6 weeks
weeks.
ago.
Six
Oh my
weeks.
God.
Brand spanking new. Yeah. It had been something I'd been planning to do for a while. I came out a few years ago.
Okay.
And the more that I started to transition, the more I felt more like myself, more comfortable in my
Hmm.
body. I was like, hey, this is something I would like to do. I want to get involved in sex work. I don't know if that's going to be OnlyFans, loyal fans, what have you. And then I was working in the service industry for a while
Hmm.
in order to get insurance for a while. And then once I got some medical stuff taken care of, I was able to finally dedicate myself to sex work. And it's just been magic ever since.
That's so amazing. So how old are you and where are you from?
I am 25 years old and I am from New York.
Oh, nice. I feel like that's a good age to get into this industry because you like kind of can see through some of the bullshit being a little bit
Yeah,
older.
yeah, absolutely. I would not have wanted to do this any younger. 21-year-old version of Vesper did not really know what was up.
Yeah, it's a crazy experience being so young in the sex industry. I started when I was like 20 or 19, something around there. So like you learn a lot of stuff real fast.
Yeah.
And also like now I feel like it's so independent that you can kind of stay where you are, cam, make clips, do porn, do kind of whatever you want. Where when I started it was so you have to move across country or you have to, take a 5 hour flight to California to do that.
Oh, wow. Wow.
Yeah,
Okay, that's
I'm
crazy.
I'm 32, but in porn years I'm
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
60.
Yeah, the carbon dating here, finding out
Yeah,
how the
like
answer.
yeah, the first award show I went to was called the Tranny Award, so just like a baseline of where the industry
Yeah.
was.
Yeah. That
Not
is
great.
the behind closed doors. I can nickname it that, but I don't want that to actually be what the title of it
Yeah,
is.
on the marquee and shit.
Yeah, oy
That's
vey.
yeah. So what like you were feeling better about your body Were you already like practicing and like kind of involved in like BDSM performance, or
I
did it just
have
kind of
been
organically happen?
I've been involved in BDSM from the dom side of things since I first started having sex. It was a pretty quick jumping point to start getting
Mm,
involved into kink. And children make mistakes, children learn. A 16-year-old having sex is not going to be, you know, the most practiced kinkster,
yes.
but here I am a decade later and having built up my tool belt, having grown and developed, it was something that I wanted to get into more professionally for a while. Then I met Victor, and Victor kept on talking up StreamMate and treasure cams and everything there, and how well it has worked for him. We were just very compatible in just what we're branding, who we are, what our goals are with working in the industry. So it was a really natural and organic business relationship to get into.
Yeah. Did you have any like other inspirations or people that like you looked up to in the industry when you got into it other than Victor, obviously?
A lot of them were ones that I had met through or had been introduced to through treasure camps. So,
Mm,
looking at some of the old stuff that Bella Vendetta was doing, seeing
yeah.
how she has been able to make a name for herself and the
Hmm.
type of shows that she runs, as well as the Lady Katrina.
Mm. Yeah, I think it's just so cool that I feel like BDSM is becoming a more organic thing in this industry, which before it was very much gate kept by a few big companies who had all the money, that it's becoming so more democratized just makes me so happy, honestly.
Yeah, yeah. Wow, that's
Yeah.
amazing.
Yeah, it's something that even like 10 years ago, it just wasn't a thing where like when I first started making stuff on my own, there wasn't like any trans submissive content out there because, the people that ran these companies genuinely believe they're like trans women can only be doms. That's impossible, you know?
Right, 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 right. Yeah, yeah. Yeah,
So
well, now it's a dime a dozen. You can see it. Anyways, I feel like a lot, like paralleling the amount that BDSM has increased in the mainstream.
for
Like I could
sure.
also say the same thing of like just trans representation in
Hmm.
general, seeing
Yeah.
different avenues for that.
Yeah. I mean, this industry is such a strange place because I feel like there's so much anti-trans stuff in this country as a whole, but I feel
Yeah,
like porn is this one place that there's
yeah,
really a history of trans people being here, as well as it not really being a debate. Like I
yeah,
don't feel like you hear anything like at these like different award shows of trans people win over cis people. You don't hear this like debate that happens if a trans person beats someone in
yeah,
swimming or like
yeah, yeah,
chess or
yeah,
like
yeah,
whatever stuff. Which is very strange to be living through this as a trans person because it's like I get to travel the world and like do all these things and like be nominated against cis films. Well, at the same time, if I did that anywhere else, it would
yeah.
probably be like a giant scandal, you know?
Yeah, 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 yeah. I feel like a lot of that is just the where we're expected to be, where we're allowed to be. Seeing us in college athletics, it's like, oh my God, my innocent daughter from the suburbs is allowed to compete in that. But in the porn industry, it's so much more like it feels so much more underground, like hush hush, let's not talk about this.
I think it's also like there weren't trans people allowed at even until I think like 2004.
Oh
So
wow.
like even that, and then they weren't allowed on stage until like 2012. So
Wow.
it was like a lot of a slow growth, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
Where it's
yeah,
like, I don't know if you've ever like dived into like the whole, I'm like a total nerd for like the whole Warhol family and like that whole vibe.
okay, cool.
And there's a trans woman who was one of like Warhol superstars, and she
Yeah,
was openly doing sex work and like doing live performance at like theaters and stuff that are porn theaters. But back then,
yeah,
trans people just weren't allowed in porn. So like she was doing trans sex work as well as like being in films that are showing at porn theaters, but they could never
yeah.
cross the two, which is just so crazy to me.
Oh my God, that's actually insane. That's super interesting.
Yeah.
Ah,
Also, I found out something crazy from that. Estrogen was super dangerous until like the 80s.
wait, really?
Yeah,
Why?
it like caused cancer essentially. So there was like a super high likelihood that you would develop cancer because of whatever was in estrogen back then.
Oh, damn.
Yeah,
Was it just
right?
they were doing it like too high of a dose, or the method with which they were
It
giving
was
it?
a different pill that doesn't exist anymore. It was these
Oh,
like
okay.
gigantic black pills that
Okay.
wouldn't dissolve and like anything. It's
Ominous.
just like the fuck.
Okay.
That's like the one
That's
thing that
that's
um
exactly where you would expect the cancer pill to be too. Is the
yeah.
ominous black pill. That feels for sure feels like a carcinogen.
Yeah. I think just like learning more about the history because I feel like as both trans people and sex workers, like we just don't there's not like a history book handed to us to be like, oh,
Yeah.
this is what it was being a trans sex worker, 20
Yeah.
years ago,
Yeah.
or even a trans person 20 years ago.
Yeah. So much of the trans experience in general is just you got to learn by yourself. You have to
For
figure it
sure.
out by yourself, especially depending on where you're living and what resources you have access to. I was fortunate to be in a more liberal area and I was surrounded by other trans people, some of which were able to help me and some of which were like, I still don't know what the hell I'm doing. But in general, everything to do with the trans experience is just gate kept. Oh, we don't want to share this with anybody. This is the unwritten history. It's never going to show up in a
Yeah.
library.
Yeah, I 100% feel that. Like, I came out in my early teens. So,
Mm,
like, when I was in college and stuff, all my friends and I were getting black market hormones, like that was just
yeah,
the usual thing. And that's like what I think's really missed in like this whole debate of being like, well, we can't give trans kids hormones and shit. And it's like they're gonna find them. You think
yeah,
teenagers aren't finding drugs?
yeah.
Like
That's a whole conversation to do with like the trans conversation in general and like protecting kids. Like I don't know about you, but like by the time I was in middle school, I knew what a trans person was. We were making really transphobic jokes as just like the type of buddy buddy type of comedy that a lot of young boys are making. And then like this idea of we have to protect these kids from knowing anything about something they already know about just feels, I don't know, counterintuitive.
it's really crazy to think about. And it's also like the availability of hormones. I think a lot of cis people don't realize it's the same hormones.
Yeah, yeah,
That
it's
it's like, oh,
yeah,
you realize most trans girls probably have friends who are on birth control.
yeah,
Or like
yeah,
trans
yeah,
dudes might know a bodybuilder who has access to testosterone?
yeah, yeah, yeah. It's so funny hearing some cis people talk what is essentially like gender affirming care of like
Hmm.
a male bodybuilder who wants to take a little bit more testosterone in order to get bigger, and then that's perfectly fine. But someone who is assigned female at birth who wants to do the exact same thing, well, that's just crazy. We can't allow that.
Yeah, this I just think there's like just not the knowledge, but when I came out so young, like nobody knew what trans stuff was. So like
Mm,
if I was like I'm trans, I had to explain the concept of it to someone.
right,
So that
right.
was like
Yeah.
yeah, 2008 to 2012 like that was the thing and even like being having trans friends in college where everyone was doing this like getting
Yeah,
tea for one of my friends at the time. My weed dealer, he brought it to our house with the weed as well.
that's so funny. That's
And he
so
was like,
funny.
"Oh, is someone going on steroids?" And it's like, "No, he's trans." And he's like, "Oh, okay, cool.
Yeah,
Let's smoke."
yeah,
Like,
yeah,
um, and I think just like those things that are just like really not really talked about because, I don't think it's either a lot of cis people don't know enough trans people to know about anything about it, or
yeah, yeah. And the trans people that I know don't aren't necessarily feeling welcome in conversations with cis people,
for sure.
where cis people like they're like, oh well, I don't know what to talk about with this, and then they steer clear of the conversation altogether, rather than just embracing that. Okay, I might be a little bit uncomfortable, but I can ask you some questions like it's any other thing going on, and be respectful, and then learn, and then further conversation.
Yeah. But I also feel like that's kind of part of the problem of this country. I feel like everyone is way more about their reactionary take than having a
Yeah,
evolved take and learning more deeply about issues rather than I saw this thing on social media and it made me mad, so I'm against it, or I'm
yeah,
for
yeah,
it.
yeah, yeah. I have some friends from high school, and they're a couple of them are a little more conservative, and I want to maintain a relationship with them, so we'll talk every now and then, try to find some common ground. And it's very much based in this like, well, I saw this thing on Twitter about someone who just took one pill of estrogen in order to get into a swimming contest. And I'm like, well, think about that for a second. Does that actually make sense? Because that I've told you my experience. Doesn't that sound wildly different? It's like, oh,
It
okay. I haven't thought about it that way.
I'm invested in the sports world. I used to have a sports podcast and stuff, and I'm a gigantic Michigan football fan. I'm from Michigan. You're born into all that. So I have a lot of interest in sport, but who gives a fuck about NCAA swimming?
Yeah,
Like
yeah,
even Olympic
yeah,
swimming, like
yeah,
you have that week every 4 years that people are into it. But after that,
yeah,
if someone came up to you and they're like,
yeah.
Michael Phelps and Ryan Lochte, you'd be like, what are you talking about?
So I was originally born in Connecticut. I'm in New
Hmm.
York now, and Connecticut has UConn, which is just like
Yeah,
renowned women's basketball.
completely
But
dominant. Yeah.
if you ask the average person, even in Connecticut, hey, can you name three people on the women's basketball team from UConn? They wouldn't be able to. And then this like idea of coming out and then being like, well, we need to protect women's sports. I care a hell of a lot about women's sports all of a sudden. It just seems very hypocritical. Look, hip, hip. What am I trying to say?
Hypocritical.
Hypocrisy. Thank you. Oh
Yeah.
my
Yeah,
goodness.
I got you. Yeah, I was just like, can I name three women on UConn? I'm like, no, I can only
Yeah.
name one.
No, I can't either. I can't either. But
I
I
won.
also I don't pretend to. I'm so not a sports person. I was never the sports person at all.
I think through sex work, I started seeing more connections with it, where I was
Mm,
like, oh, this is a way out for a lot of people. Like sex work is a way out for a lot of people, and it's
yeah.
specifically young people, and it's like this very specific thing. Also, just like the whole reality show aspect of it. If you just view it as a reality show, it's really fun. Like, because that's all
So
it
funny.
is.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like,
Yeah. Yeah.
I've college football is my like most hardcore sport I follow. I watch like
Yeah.
200 games a year, very committed, but it's dumb. All of
Yeah.
this stuff is dumb, and it's okay.
Yeah.
It's okay to like dumb things that don't actually mean
Yeah.
anything.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And like that's how I view it. I'm like it's like a Bravo show, but it's like on its
Yeah.
150th season.
That's so funny. I was always much more of a like arts and music
Mm,
person, and I would talk to some person, and a bunch of people, and they would have the conversation about sports, and they would look at me playing an instrument, and they would say like, "Well, why would you want to do that? It's just the same thing over and over again. The song's not changing. It was written, and it's just keep on running it over and over again. So you can play it what a little bit differently." And I'm like, that's exactly how I feel about every sports game I've ever
yeah.
seen. It's the exact same thing over and over again, little bit of changes.
Yeah, basically. Yeah, I think porn is almost the intersection of both those things. Because it's like an artistry, but it's also this like very
Yeah,
innate physical ability that not everyone
yeah,
has.
yeah, 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 yeah.
Where I definitely feel like it's I compare it to maybe like figure skating or something. Because it
Mm,
is
yeah,
an
yeah,
art, but it's also this like super physically demanding thing that you have to make it look like it's no effort and anyone can
yeah,
do.
yeah, 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 yeah. And a lot of people very cockily say like, "Oh, I can get into that. I can do that. That doesn't seem that hard." And then the moment they step foot on the ice, they just like lose
Yeah.
it.
Yeah, then they're in the corner not being able to get hard and everyone's
Yeah,
on their phones being
yeah,
like
yeah.
so you're 6 weeks in.
Yes.
How are you feeling so far? Do you feel like this is gonna be like a longer term thing for you? Or do you think
I
it's just like fun for now?
I really want it to be a longer term thing for me. This is like the question of how do I make that work, especially as someone who, I'm 25 right now. Um, Sex work is something where you see a lot of younger people get into it, and then you don't see as many older people follow through with it. So it's the question of how do I make it work? I can say that like of every job I've ever worked, there's always been this grace period when I start out where I'm like, oh, I don't know if I can do this. I'm not kind of sure. I'm still
Mm-hmm.
getting my feel for it. Like, I don't really know how I'm feeling. And then sex work has been the one exception to that,
Mm.
where I got on camera, I started making money. I've just been going up, 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 up.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, oh my God, like day one, I'm like, I can do this. This
Mm.
can be a thing for me. I can fully, see myself committing to this as like a longer term thing, which is a really refreshing change.
I feel like the ride up is so exciting because you don't know where it's going, you know?
Yeah,
Like
yeah,
you don't know if it's gonna like Like I genuinely miss that because like when you're in your beginning, you're like, is this just gonna be I'm gonna make some good money on cam? Is this gonna turn into a career? Where is this gonna take me?
Yeah.
And like I would just say like really enjoy the ride of whatever happens, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. I feel like I'm on a roller coaster and I have like a blindfold on and I'm just hearing the like as I go higher and higher and higher. I'm like, oh my God, oh my God, how high are we gonna go? Oh my God, this is building excitement here.
Yeah, I definitely remember that vibe where you're like where people are kind of perceiving you differently than you perceived
Yeah.
yourself and you're like, "Oh, who are they talking to?" And then it's like, "Oh, that's me." Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
So so was like BDSM, is that like a core part of your sexuality? Because like for me personally, like I was always attracted to women, but like I feel like sexually I had way more BDSM fantasies
Mm,
throughout like my teen years, even into like early 20s. Like I felt like that is where my sexuality more sat. Do you feel that, or do you feel like it's just kind of something that kind of comes along?
it's like sex is kind of like ice cream, and it's like kink is kind of like toppings. And I could
Mm.
have ice cream without toppings. I could just have plain vanilla. That's nice. That's nice every now and then. It's fine. It's fine. I'm never gonna say no to ice cream. But like, wouldn't you rather have Rocky Road? Wouldn't you rather have something else? Kink has for sure been just a constant theme throughout my sexual development, and
Hmm.
figuring out my sexuality is like figuring out, hey, once you introduce like power exchange to this, you see how it's pretty fucking hot. Like, let's
Yeah.
see how far we can take this.
Yeah, I almost feel like it's like distortion on a guitar, where it's like a clean
Yes.
tone's fine, but like when you add all this mental shit to it, it's a whole different experience. You can go all these other places.
Yeah, yeah. It having just straight up an orgasm is enjoyable, but once you have
Yeah.
like the denial and then you can like build that anticipation, the payoff at the end is going to be so much bigger. The guitar distortion analogy is really working for me as someone who was the musical person. I tend to think of things like I'm writing music. I'm like, all right, how can I have this seamlessly flow into another movement? How can I build a crescendo so that we have this big climax at the end?
Yeah, what kind of music did you play?
I tried to play it all. I tried to like uh get a varied experience. I was classically trained, and I did the a lot of my upbringing was based in classical music and classical piano. And then I hit puberty, and I was like, I have to get more edgy, and I started to play jazz and rock, and started to play a little bit of punk, and
Nice.
yeah. I try to mix it up. At least, certainly, what I listen to, I try to be as eclectic as possible.
Yeah, I was also in the music world before porn, and I'm assuming you probably ran into the thing where the money left in music is just so low.
Yeah, yeah. What
Where
money? You found money?
exactly.
Where'd you find it?
I'm like, not really. But like, yeah, I feel like that was a big thing for my pivot where I'm like, there's
Yeah,
such little money in music. And
yeah,
obviously seeing where it went in the last 10 years, where like back
yeah,
then touring was still having some sort of money.
yeah,
And now it's just kind of
yeah,
gone. And who kind of knows where porn, I feel like it's kind of moving in the same direction, but there's at least
mm,
somewhat of something left.
yeah, yeah. I have like old connections from, I've been playing music with various people in various different spaces. Some of them classical, some of them punk. Like a
Hmm.
big
Yeah.
array. Watching all of them go through the industry and try to figure out, hey, how am I going to actually be able to pay the bills? How am I going to potentially raise a family on this? And it's just finding different ways to diversify, diversify, diversify.
And it's even like when you do have a stable music job, one of the people I used to work with, so after I was in bands and stuff, I was a promoter for a while. And one of my friends went to school to be like involved with the music industry and was working for Live Nation and then got
Mm,
completely laid off, never got their job back from Live Nation during the
yeah,
pandemic. And
yeah.
it's just like no matter how stable a job seems in the music industry, it doesn't feel like it's actually that stable.
Yeah, yeah. All the people who I've found that have been able to like stick with it have to have their, they have investments in every bucket. Oh,
Hmm.
I'm a piano teacher, and also I produce, and also I've been composing, and also I've been working on all these different side projects. Oh, and also I had to buy property because the majority of my money comes from being a landlord. Like,
Damn. Yeah, that's
yeah,
crazy. I feel like music does give you a lot of skills that are transferable for porn. Like,
yeah,
I feel like, particularly like if you eventually start like booking your own shoots with like different companies and stuff, I feel like being the person in a band who was the one who emailed everyone.
yeah,
Like definitely it's like there's a lot
yeah,
of transferable skills.
yeah,
I will say when you're traveling alone, it's a lot better than if you're in a band with like six people
yeah,
and you're in a van instead of being like, oh, I can fly here instead and stay in a hotel
yeah.
alone, you know?
There's also the nerves of, hey, I'm flying here alone. If someone looks into my backpack, okay, they're gonna see sound equipment, they're gonna see my instrument, versus if someone looks in, they're gonna see, oh hey, look at all these strap-ons that I packed. Look at all of these anal bubs. Okay. Please don't look at me twice about that.
I have a really good story with that. So I was on tour, I think it was between Paris and Amsterdam,
Hmm.
and we were going through airport security. And I also had some shoots. We had a bunch of screenings planned. So I had a butt plug, but the TSA in France, I think it was right after their like really bad attack that happened there. So their security was
Oh yeah,
very
yeah, yeah.
heightened.
Right.
So none of them spoke English, so I had to explain what a butt plug was with my hand, where I was
Oh
like, this, and then like there was a moment where
yeah.
they're like, oh,
Uh,
and I'm like, yeah, and they're like, okay, go on.
Entree, entree, the port. Oh, ooh,
Saying like
ooh
butt
la
plug
la.
repeatedly, and they're
Yeah,
like, oh, okay. I also had that with a spider gag before in the States where I'm like, yeah, it's a sex toy, and yeah, I've
yeah,
never had any thing like really weird with anyone feeling being that sketchy, but I think
yeah.
most TSA and stuff, they've kind of seen everything at this point.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. It doesn't mean like as the person who's going through it, especially as a trans person, that I'm not going to be filled with anxiety every time about when they have
For
to pat me
real.
down and check to make sure. Oh, and you have sex toys. Oh, that gives me all the more reason to
Yeah,
be a
I
little
mean,
creepy.
if you do travel a lot, well, any trans person who travel a lot, I would suggest getting the TSA pre-check if you have the
Yeah,
extra
yeah,
money.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
I mean, aside from them not having you go through the scanner, that's like, what, why do you have junk there or something, you know?
yeah, yeah,
Where then I get felt up and I'm like,
yeah,
okay, this is less than
yeah,
ideal. But
yeah, yeah, yeah,
you can
yeah.
just walk through the metal detector. Also, just if it's great to show up to the airport like 10 minutes before and just
Yeah,
like
yeah, yeah,
stroll
yeah, yeah.
through.
Look at the big line and then have like a fast pass, just breeze through, and then you have that little moment of like, I'm not better than you, but I do feel like I'm like a little bit first class right now.
Yeah, I only feel that like when I don't know if you ever went through the clear thing where you get to skip the
Yes,
line plus
yes,
when you get both.
yes,
Damn, I'm sounding bougie on here now. I'm gonna have
yes,
a third
yes,
element fan be like,
yeah.
Chelsea sold out. But
I I
I
took a
love
flight
that shit.
to Minnesota last year, and I
Hmm.
had like just the free trial of Clear. That's the only reason I noted it. I showed up to the airport. I'm like, oh, what the hell is Clear? They like signed me up for the free trial, and I just like walk on. I just like skip everybody. I was like, oh my god, is this allowed? Have I? What is happening right now?
Yeah, California is trying to outlaw it right now.
Oh my god, really?
Yeah, so that's a downer for me personally, but
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
um
yeah,
yeah, I think that's like been the most like rewarding thing because like being in music, I was so it's so built around touring and stuff and like those were my goals. So I think getting
yeah,
to do the same thing with porn with screening films and like going to film festivals and stuff, like
yeah.
it's been really rewarding. Have you ever like I know you're obviously in the beginning, but is that something you really want to pursue like down the road where you're making like full films?
Yeah, yeah. I'm open to everything right now. It's kind of like I kind of like going again with the music analogy is like you start off doing one thing and you're like, okay, let's see where I'm gonna go from here. Let's see
Hmm.
how my artistry develops. Right now I think of myself as a trumpet player, but like, hey, let's see 6 months from now what type of music I actually end up doing, so to speak. So yeah, I'm super interested in any opportunities like that.
Yeah, I think it has to be just interesting right now where you are in your being so early in your career that you can kind of explore things. And is it much as you're like, you said you're like, oh, I'm getting older for this industry? Like most women in this industry don't hit their sexual peak until like 29 to like lower 30s.
Yeah,
So like maybe to 35, and that's when you usually get like the most acclaim for your work.
right.
So you have plenty of time.
I didn't mean
Like
to make it seem like I'm like thinking, oh my God, I'm at the dregs of my years. I my time has passed. Take me out to pasture. It's just recognizing just how much of this is like, there seems to be a drop off where a lot of the faces that you see, not that there aren't many successful
yeah.
older women in the industry, but there seems to be, a lot of younger women, and then there's just so much less representation.
Yeah. I think with what you're doing, I think especially being like in a dom role, I think you're gonna be in a good position. I think if you're trying to chase being trans performer of the year, that could
Yeah.
be a little bit of an issue, but I don't think you're trying to do mainstream
Yeah.
trans porn.
Yes. No, thank you.
Yeah. Yeah, also I've like had performers on here. Magdalene St. Michael's, who's a performer, she started porn when she was 50.
Mm.
And she also discovered she was a lesbian on set when she was 50.
Oh my
Or is
God.
just into women.
Oh my God. Yeah,
Yeah.
crazy.
Yeah.
That's
That was
crazy.
a wild podcast on here where I was
Yeah,
like, oh
yeah,
my
yeah, yeah.
God. I'm like, really? Wow.
Oh my God.
But like, yeah, I think, yeah, don't think you're too old for
Yeah,
anything.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Actually, funny overlap is that like, and this is a whole can of worms, but a lot of how I started experiencing, gender questioning and gender identity is that it started out with fetish, is like thinking,
Mm.
oh, I'm a crossdresser, oh, I'm this is just it. I remember like reading up on forums where they said, oh, a lot of trans women actually start off thinking that it's a fetish, and then I remember thinking, well, that's not me. That would never be me. I've thought about it, and I've thought it out. I'm certain at age 18, this is just a kink.
Yeah, that's what eggs say. They're like,
Yeah,
this
I
isn't
know.
real. This isn't real.
Yeah, yeah. No, sure, it's just a kink, and then sometimes like I'm a lifestylist kinkster with my cross dressing, and it's just I really like wearing my fetish gear, which is just a bra underneath my clothes. Oh, that's how kinky I must be. When in actuality, there's a little something else going. Yeah, you are kinky, but there's something else going on.
Yeah, I feel like I'm kind of lucky in some ways because I figured I was trans before I was like sexual at all. I
Yeah.
it's
Oh.
funny to like say, but I never masturbated till the first time till I was like 18. And I didn't watch
Oh
porn
my
till I
God,
was 18.
really? Oh
But I
my God,
started, yeah,
really?
but I started camming at 19 or 20.
Wow.
So yeah, it's like this
Yeah,
whole different thing. Like it just
yeah,
wasn't an interest because all my shit was so tied up in fetish and I didn't know what any of
yeah,
that was until I saw Lady Gaga when she started coming around. She was like wearing a strap
yeah,
on and
yeah,
like
yeah, yeah,
all
yeah.
latex. I'm like, this means
Oh, I get
something.
it.
This means something. I don't know why. So that's why I have
Yeah.
multiple Lady Gaga tattoos
Oh my God, that's so
and like
funny.
followed her and
Yeah,
like yeah,
yeah. No, she's
that
dope.
was yeah. That was
That's
my only
so
like
funny.
exposure to queerness when I was like, you know, living in
Yeah,
Michigan in like 2010.
yeah, yeah. Were you from Michigan or the UP?
I'm from the actual
Yeah, cool.
part. Yeah, I'm
I
from this small town. It's named Holland, Michigan. It's just
okay.
known it's just known it's like a mini Netherlands, but it's in the middle of the Midwest.
Oh,
So,
interesting.
yeah, our entire economy relies on a tulip festival. That's actually happening right now. And
Oh, wow.
we have more tulips than anywhere in the world. We have windmills, we have traditional Dutch everything. All the
That's
street
super
signs are in
cool.
Dutch. It's fucking
Yeah,
weird. But it's
that's
ultra
interesting.
conservative.
Yeah, yeah.
You might know our most famous resident, Betsy DeVos.
Oh my God. Oh my God. Oh
I
my
know.
God.
It's not good.
See, I have opposite side but similar experience where I grew up in Connecticut, but it was
Hmm.
it was still pretty conservative. It was like,
It's like waspy conservative.
yeah, exactly, exactly. You might know our most famous former resident, Caitlyn Jenner.
Oh, of course. I mean,
Yeah,
I've spent a weird amount of time in like the New England area doing porn.
yeah,
Like,
yeah,
I would
yeah,
say
yeah,
a good 40% of my career was in either Connecticut, Rhode Island,
yeah,
New Hampshire, or Massachusetts.
yeah, yeah.
It's
Really working
weird.
the way around there in the Northeast.
Yeah, the way, so I was doing mainstream porn there and they dressed me like in a waspy way. So
Yeah,
it was
yeah,
a lot. I was like playing a lot of people's
yeah,
nannies.
yeah. I'm sure.
I was a liberal arts student who had an affair with my professor, like,
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
very New
yeah.
England storylines.
Yeah, 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 yeah,
Boarding
yeah. That's
school,
so funny. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, I've spilt my clam chowder.
That should have been. See,
Yeah.
it wasn't even that fun. It was just
Yeah.
like scandals.
Yeah, yeah,
Like
yeah, yeah, yeah,
I would
yeah.
have liked it a little bit more if it was like, talk about horseshoe crabs and stuff like
Yeah,
that, you know?
yeah. Yeah, yeah. That's so funny. So funny.
Um, so yeah, where do you kind of like you're obviously very early in your career, but like where do you kind of see this going like the next like 6 months? Like, is there any big goals you have, or are you just kind of enjoying the ride?
It's kind of enjoying the ride and seeing what where it takes me. Right now, a lot of what I'm doing, I'm on Streammate
Mm-hmm.
Friday through Monday, 10 to 2
Mm-hmm.
Eastern time, and I'm just like I'm doing a lot of like role play storytelling stuff, and I'm getting a lot of sissification, a lot of bi fantasy, a lot of stuff like that. This is where I see my bread and butter being for sure is
Mm-hmm.
sticking on Streammate and getting things that way. But I am very interested in exploring making content, longer content, seeing if I can shoot more in general and just build up that skill set.
Yeah, what kind of like themes are you looking to shoot like overall? Is there anything that's like really speaking to you?
Well, that this is like a question. It's like I know what I enjoy in my personal life, and then there's also, hey, what do I want as a professional life?
Mm-hmm.
Is there a difference there? I would love to get into making more queer porn. I also know
Yeah.
that there's more convention in the mainstream industry for less of like if I say, hey, I'm really into androgyny and I really the people who I am attracted to as partners are like really androgynous,
Mm-hmm.
and I can for sure find an avenue for that. And also if I can have a scene with a like conventionally attractive petite woman, and I'm sure that that would sell a lot more. So it's
Mm-hmm.
like figuring out a lot of that stuff. And again, I'm very new, so it's like, it is figuring this out, seeing what I'm open to, what it's going to work for me.
I think
Okay.
the biggest thing is just finding your own maybe like voice.
Hmm.
Like maybe I think that's kind of where it's comparable to music because it's like I think it's very easy to be like, "Oh, I'm going to do something like this." But eventually I think you're going to find your voice and like what's really
Yeah.
your I don't want to say brand because that sounds like
Yeah.
Ellie and shitty, but
Yeah.
it's like finding what is authentically like you and like what makes you different in this industry, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, we'll see. Stay tuned.
I know. I'm getting like floor level here. Hopefully
Yeah.
your career blows up,
Yeah. Yeah.
win
Yeah.
every
Yeah.
award, and then
Every
people come
single
back
one.
to this and be like,
Yeah.
this is the
Yeah.
origin story.
Yeah. We'll have a follow-up interview, and it's like a where are they now?
Yeah, hopefully. Um, so yeah, what do you like? It kind of goes off of this, but what are your like big goals, I guess? Do you have any like big goals for what you're doing?
Gosh, that's like such a open-ended question.
I mean, it's also okay if you don't. You're like 6 weeks in.
It's
Like
true. It's true.
you
Yeah,
probably
right now,
you
right
probably
now I'm
remember
just
usernames from your first cam session.
I do. I really do. I really do. I remember my first regular and just going like, "Oh my God, I have a regular." Yeah, right now it's just sticking with it and see where it takes me. Being so new and everything, definitely sticking with camming regularly, getting that more
Yeah.
comfortable. It's also something where like this is my first time being self-employed and like having that
Yeah.
be my main source of income. Whereas like previously after college, I was sticking with the service industry jobs that offered what I was doing then as more stability. So there's other avenues of where I would like to find self-employment, and there's like art and stuff I'd like to do, and seeing if I can integrate kink and art in that way. I'll keep it on brand to be a little LA and shitty. We shall
Uh,
see. We shall see.
yeah. How do you you're a post-op trans woman, correct?
I
That's
am.
what Bella told me. I'm like, if you
Yeah.
weren't, you would be like,
Yeah.
no. I'd be
What?
like,
What?
what?
What are you talking
Get
about?
off the podcast. I'm kidding.
God, do you just assume every trans woman?
How do you like feel like entering the industry like that? Like, I had Domino Presley on the podcast. I think it was last week, and she was talking about there's a stealth post-op trans woman who's in mainstream porn right now. Is a
Mm.
cis woman, and nobody knows, and she's like getting nominated for awards and stuff.
Wow. Wow.
Like, do you feel like you have to put your transness so forward with it, or do you feel like there's almost this desire? Like, I don't even know desire, because even being I'm non-op, but I feel like there's almost this push to like erase transness out of some like trans women in porn, where
Yeah.
it's not
Yeah.
necessarily. I don't even know if it's a anti-trans thing, but I feel like there's almost like a whitewashing that kind of happens.
Yeah. Yeah. That it was for sure the biggest conversation going into this.
Mm,
Knowing that I was going to be marketing myself a certain way and saying, okay, I'm going on StreamMate where they have the option to either say trans or woman. Which
yeah.
category am I going to go in? Because either way, by and large, I'm not going to be what they're expecting. Um, if I go into the trans category, then there's going to be a bunch of people who are like, "Where's your dick? Show me your dick." And if I go into the woman category, they're going to be like, "Why is your voice so low? Why you don't pass the way I'm expecting you to?" And it was a really difficult conversation, and like thinking about what was going to be the most successful for me. Ultimately, I went with the woman category, and I'm very vocal about the fact that I'm trans and I'm post-op
Yeah.
trans. Some of that draws in some curiosity from some people who are like, "I've never seen you post-op pussy before," but
I,
and some of that, draws
I
in.
love your client voice. It's so
Oh
funny.
yeah, yeah. No,
It's
they're
completely real though.
every single one of them I'm seeing in my head, and they're just like, "Whoa, show me your tits."
But I don't have
um,
any money. My credit card got
Yeah,
declined.
yeah. If I just compliment you enough, will you just show me your tits? Yeah, that's exactly how this works.
You want to
I
date
just
me,
want to be,
right?
yeah, like, can we take it off this platform? Oh my god, can I actually live in your basement? What the fuck? Okay. Um, anyways, it was a difficult conversation, and like I still get like a lot of people who just don't even know what that is,
Yeah.
who come on and they're like post-op trans, what does that even mean? I decided to do the woman category, and I'm still like feeling that out and how much I need to like present that I'm trans. I
Mhm.
put it on my bio so that people have it there and they can like know so that they don't turn around and say, "You tricked me, you trap," and using a bunch of other words that we didn't want to actually hear thrown at us. But I don't know. I don't know.
I'm like, I've been camming for so long. I'm just in my head. I'm like, bitch, I have your money. I don't give a fuck. Like
Exactly.
that's
Exactly. That's
yeah. I've been camming for like 12. Yeah, too long. Where
yeah.
I'm just like,
I honestly, you have a hard on. What the fuck do you care?
yeah,
Like
you
you
don't
know,
care.
you're looking at a pussy. You're jerking off to almost the exact same thing. I could have been a cis woman and put like post-op trans, and you would have had that same conflict, even though you can't tell the difference. If you have a hard on, jerk off to me. Once I have you in my cam room, it doesn't matter. We're good. We're good. I have your money. We're fine. We're fine.
Yeah, I feel like if you're jerking off to someone who has tits and you're a man, you're straight.
Yeah,
Because,
yeah.
because they try to like complicate it so much, and then it's like, really though, you just straight.
I also get like there's so many that come in and they like say first like, oh, you're trans? Oh, but you have a pussy? I'm straight, but you turn me on so much. And then they
Well,
like take,
duh. You're a woman
yeah,
with a fucking pussy.
I'm a woman with a pussy, and I'm like, damn, I'm fucking hot. I get it, but
And
like,
like and like
there's
a
just so much.
designer pussy.
Yes, yes, absolutely. Fucking Versace over here. But I'll take them into the room and I'll spend the entire time where they're like, "Oh, I feel so perverted for doing this," and I'm like, "Can you like? First of all, what a compliment! Thank you so much. You make me feel great." But also just like you're jerking off to a pussy. There is
Yeah.
absolutely nothing perverted about that. There is absolutely nothing that is like even homosexual about that. If you're a man and you're jerking off to a pussy and tits, doesn't matter what it used to look like. That's what it looks like now.
Yeah. I feel like people try to overthink shit way too much.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
It's like same thing for any other trans performer, where it's like if you have tits and they're like, "Oh, but your chest used to be flat," so did every other woman's.
Especially with like me transitioning like so fucking young.
Yeah,
It's just like, bitch, it's the same. It's the
yeah,
same.
yeah,
I had the same 19-year-old boobs as any other girl. You're
yeah,
fine.
yeah, yeah, yeah. It's really true. It's really, really true.
So I have one final question for you. This is kind of
Yeah.
my only BuzzFeedy kind of question.
Okay. Let's hear it.
Let's say you could wake up tomorrow and one thing in porn would magically be changed. What would you have it be?
Oof. Oof. Broad question. Um. All right. Can I answer it in two parts?
Oh, as many as you want. I've also
All
had
right.
people be like, I'm gonna have five. And I'm like,
Yeah.
okay, that's not against the
Yeah.
rules. There's no
Yeah.
rules. It's magic.
Yeah. Yeah. It would have been wild if you were like, no, you have to give
No.
one solid answer.
This is very strict.
Yeah.
We don't fuck around.
So the reason I'm gonna do it in two parts is I'm gonna say in the industry and out of the industry.
Okay.
Out of the industry, the stigma around the industry should be erased.
For real.
Um, it's also something that is like particularly potent for me right now as someone who's so new. There's a lot
Yeah.
of people who don't know that I'm doing sex work, and it's like a
Hmm.
second coming out. You know, there are people where I'm like,
For
are you going to
sure.
have a harder time grappling with me coming out as trans or me coming out as a sex worker?
Yeah. That's definitely a thing. It's something I literally haven't thought about
Yeah, yeah,
like 10 years, but
yeah, yeah, yeah,
it's like
yeah,
very a real thing that you have to have this second coming out. And then I feel like early on people are like, is your life spiraling out of control? Blah, 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 blah. And
yeah,
then you almost have to
yeah,
prove like by your like doing things in the industry that it's not,
yeah,
that's like, oh, this is
yeah.
serious.
No, it's work. I'm running a business right now. I'm at 25. I'm spending every weekend evening on cam. Do you have any idea what I'm like sacrificing in order to make this work for me? Do you have any idea like how much effort and time is going into this? Just like for me starting off right now, I'm like
Yeah.
constantly building up things in order to make this happen. But it doesn't get that same respect. And then especially as a trans woman, where for so many trans women who are already stigmatized as being hypersexual despite not necessarily being sexual. Like I have some friends who are asexual and they're trans and they're still shoehorned into this like belief of like, oh well oh you must be super sexual.
100%.
Saying, oh, I'm a trans woman and I'm in sex work now, it's like just confirming some shitty expectations.
Yeah. I feel like it's a stereotype too.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely, absolutely. So that's my first part. It's outside of the
Okay.
industry. I would love to see some of the stigma go away.
Hmm.
I'm a worker. I'm a worker. Treat me with respect.
Yeah.
Within the industry itself, I would love to see more diversity of different body types and different gender expressions, particularly non-binary expression, just get a little more consumed and a little
Yeah.
more mainstream. Um, if I go onto Pornhub or whatever right now, I just scroll down, I'm just going to see a lot of hetero couples, and it's going to be the same exact, physique. It's going to be the same exact on both the male
Yeah.
and female part, but like it's so much harder to find good quality queer porn, good quality androgyny, like fat bodies, different
Hmm.
representation as well.
Yeah. I think it's just really about finding the right people doing the right things. And
Yeah.
well, it's like not on Pornhub and shit. I do
Yeah.
have to say, like, when I first started going to industry events to now,
Yeah.
like when you go to AVN now, it's like 20% trans people, which is fucking
Yeah.
crazy. Because
Yeah.
like other than like Pride, I'm like I haven't been in a room with that many trans people.
Yeah, yeah,
Like
yeah,
other
yeah,
than that
yeah.
one time a year,
That's
and
so
just
funny.
like I think the thing about this industry that continues to amaze me is like going to an event like AVN where you meet people from like all around the world who are doing all sorts of different specific kind of porn. Where there's like someone who's like, I make my entire career off of doing balloon fetish stuff. I've been doing this
Yeah.
for 15 years and this is my first nomination ever. This is my
Yeah.
life work. And it's just like, wow. And then you like meet people from, like, oh, I'm in South Africa and I make porn there, or I'm in France, or just like
Yeah.
all these different experiences. It's like the one thing that makes me really feel
Yeah.
positive about our community, that is so vast and there's all sorts of body types from super small people to people who are very large.
Yeah.
Like that's the stuff that makes me like really happy
Yeah.
and feel inspired to be
Yeah.
part of this industry.
For sure, for sure. I didn't mean to make it seem like these aren't things that are out there. It's super amazing to see all of these different people find success. It is also something where it's like, I wish that there were fewer hurdles for people who
Yeah,
are less along with the convention and along
for
less of the
sure.
mainstream.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's definitely a thing. I mean, obviously when I started, holy shit, it was very
Yeah.
offensive.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
I think that might be my old person hat talking to be like,
Yeah, yeah.
but yeah, I think it has a long way to go still, but
Yeah. Yeah.
it's better than I think it was. But I also think
Yeah.
it's important when you are further in the industry to try to go to like some more events, just because I think you really get to see more of a scope of everything.
Yeah.
So I
Yeah.
think particularly like early on, it feels so almost individualized because you're camming on your own. You're in
Yeah.
an area where there's probably not like a huge sex work community. There's
Yeah.
probably some people. So
Yeah.
whenever you do
Yeah.
get a chance, I think it's really a valuable thing for nothing more than just to be like, oh wow, there's
Yeah.
all these people.
Yeah. 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 Absolutely. Absolutely.
Well, I'm so glad I got to talk to you like this early in your career, and
Yeah. Thank you.
I
It's been an amazing
hope,
opportunity.
yeah, hope that you make all the cool stuff in the future, and I hope to have you back soon, and for you to be like, oh yeah, I made this film and I did this and that, just to
Yeah.
like really see it grow. Where can everyone find all your like, do you have socials? Do you have like where they can find your campsite?
Yes. So on social media, I am on Twitter at Vesper underscore Vail. I am on Instagram at Vesper Vail, no underscore. And if you're looking to see me cam, I am on Streammate from 10 till 2 on Monday, Sunday, Saturday, and Friday. Did that a little bit backwards, but Eastern time, Friday through Monday, 10 to 2.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much again for coming on.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. It was amazing.
Bye, everyone.